What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another mint on card vintage Star Wars market update. And as you can tell by this thumbnail, we have lots of terrific Trilogos to go through. There were a number of really nice ones that sold here recently. I don't know how this market works. It seems like everything goes in waves, and for this video, it's a lot of Trilogos. That's not the only thing, but I did want to show these beautiful Trilogos that sold. I've got a couple of shout outs to give before we dig into this video in earnest, and the first one is to an anonymous appreciative collector. He became a Patreon supporter and he wanted to remain anonymous, but he said he really appreciates the channel, and I want to thank you for becoming a Patreon supporter. Also, Joe Rice, who is a longtime Patreon supporter, he recently increased his pledge. There's been a lot of you guys doing that here lately to help pay with channel expenses, and I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. All my Patreon supporters get my videos 24 hours, early access. It's patreon.com/actionfiguregrader. That is enough prequel. Let's dig into some awesome items. We're going to start off with a couple of creatures/vehicles, and the first one is an AFA 75 Plus land speeder. So this was the 1979 version without the long play logo. So the earliest version had the LP logo down here by the Kenner. This one came out a little bit later, and it says no LP logo on the AFA label. Again, graded 75 plus, so this is a mint and sealed box example. So very early land speeder. This is also not the collector series land speeder that came out in about 1983 during the Return of the Jedi era. This one sold for big money, as you'd expect, given how this was an early land speeder. $1,345 took that one home. That is a big number, and I actually think that this price is higher than an AFA example that we saw here recently that had the long play logo. So I don't know if that's a sign that this one without the long play logo is harder to find. My gut says it probably is, because I think, I'm going on memory now, there was a long play logo mint and sealed box land speeder that was higher grade. I think it was an AFA 80 that sold for under $1,000 if memory serves. So this one is lower grade without the long play logo. It came out a little bit later, a year later, and it commanded a higher price. So just interesting information on that one. Next up is a mint and sealed box AFA 75 Tauntaun. And this one is labeled, as you can see here, 1980 Tauntaun. Usually they label it open belly versus closed belly Tauntaun, but maybe because this was the original issue, it didn't have anything on there. The box had one big ding, as you can see at the bottom there on the front. But again, it was an AFA 75, probably appropriately scored, and that one sold for $733. That's a pretty fair price, I think. AFA 80 examples or above can often command $800 to as high as $1,000. So I think, given that this was a 75 grade with some obvious box condition issues from a display perspective, $733 plus $20 shipping was very fair. Let's dig into the mint on cards. We're going to start off with a few Empire Strikes Back cards. First, we've got a 31 back UKG 85%, 31 back B. 80, 85, 90 were the subscores on that one. Beautiful crystal clear blister. It was punched with no price sticker, but this was a very early Lando without the smile on his face there. So usually those 31 backs, to my knowledge, they all had the no teeth version of Lando. Beautiful example though. UKG 85%, as you can see right there. 31 back B. That one sold for 525 pounds, which is $638. I think that's an absolute bargain, especially if you're in the UK and you can avoid the global shipping program prices for shipping. But wow, $638 for that I think was a great buy. I've seen this one sell unpunched as high as $1,000, believe it or not, if not higher. So to get that one for 525 pounds, I think that's a great buy. Next up was an AFA 80 example of the 21B medical droid. This one was on the 41 back A survival kit offer, and it was a punched example with a clear blister. Very nice. It did have a little bit of card wave, as you can see there on the bottom, and that's something we've talked about in my grading case video, how, some of these cards, they can curl even inside of the grading case. But beautiful example overall, though, and that one sold for $641 and change, and very, very nice example for the medical droid. Next up was an ungraded AT-AT driver. This one was an unpunched 41 back E, as you can see here. Very nice looking example. Just some light edge wear to it. Probably an overall 75 plus grade. Crystal clear blister. Very, very nice. Unpunched with the price sticker. $288 took that home. I thought that was a great buy. Again, it did have some edge wear and card curling, things like that. But that's a pretty good bargain, if you ask me, for the AT-AT driver on a fairly early card back. Next up, this is one I was talking about offline with fellow YouTuber Blacked Out Ewoks, and this is a Palitoy 45 back Imperial TIE Fighter pallet graded UKG 85%. And I double checked it, and he double checked it. This was not on the Toy Tony list, so this is an actual verified example, non-Toy Tony. 85, 90, 85 were the sub scores on that. It had a 13 stamp on the bubble. So again, you know, this is not one of those Toy Tonys, and for those of you who don't know what Toy Tonys are, a guy named Tony bought a bunch of overstock card backs and overstock blisters, and then he assembled after the fact a lot of these Palitoy card backs, but this is not one of them on the list. There's a guide online called Mr. Palitoy's Card Back Guide that you can go check out using the interwebs, and this one does not fall on that list, but a beautiful example, and the price reflected that, 826 pounds, which is about $1,000 US plus shipping. So gorgeous Palitoy card back and crystal clear blister with high subgrades. Next up was a 77 back A Lando Calrissian graded AFA 75. 80, 75, 85 were the sub scores, but this one had a crystal clear blister, which is very, very tough to find for these later Return of the Jedi US release card backs. Unpunched with a price sticker. It was listed for $475 US, and the best offer that was accepted was $435 US. And now's a good time to remind folks that if you guys have collections to sell, whether they're mint on cards like the examples we're going through here, graded, ungraded, loose figures, loose graded figures, play sets, vehicles, whatever you got, if you're looking to sell a large collection, you can reach out to me at actionfiguregrader@gmail.com. I have a lot of trusted buyers. One buyer just purchased a very large loose collection for about $6,000 US, and the seller was very happy. He's like, that much? So, you know, I've got folks that pay very fair prices, and it allows you to avoid a lot of the eBay fees and hassles of dealing with eBay buyers. So reach out to me, actionfiguregrader@gmail.com, if you have any interest in selling a collection. Next up was a mint on card Darth Vader. This one was the Lily Letty made in Mexico example. So you can see in the lower left-hand corner on the back of the card back, it says made in Mexico. And as we've talked about in past videos, the backs of these Lily Lettys that were made for the US market have kind of a matte finish to the back. They're a lot less vibrant. It's kind of a non-glossy back. So that combined with the made in Mexico, combined with that hole punch that you see right here, that is a factory hole punch on the back of the card, so you know this is a Lily Letty, and those usually stay clear blister, as this one did. So a beautiful example of the Darth Vader. $375 is a great buy. That's a really, really good value on an 80 grade, if not higher condition, Lily Letty made in Mexico for the U.S. market card back Darth Vader. So beautiful example, $375 plus $17 shipping. That's the lowest price I've seen for one in this kind of condition in a long time. That's a great buy. Next up was a 77 back Han Solo Bespin, yellowed blister, but it was a yellowed 85 unpunched example, UKG graded, no price sticker. That one sold for 410 pounds, which equates to about $500 US. Again, would I pay that? Probably not, just given the yellowing to the blister. Is it worth that? I think in this current environment, yeah, it probably is worth that, given the high grade. But those yellow blisters, even in grading cases, because of shipping, those figures, if they don't have the inner tray like this Han Solo Bespin doesn't have, those figures can jostle around during shipping and shoot right through those very brittle yellowed blisters. So I personally would stay away from it just because I'd be terrified of it not arriving safely. But it's a gorgeous example and certainly worth every penny. It's just not something I personally would pay. Now we're going to dig into the Trilogos. This was the focus of this video, and there was just some incredible Trilogos that sold here recently. Here was a punched example of the Trilogo Tebow AFA 80 grade. It was listed for 425 pounds. The best offer that was accepted was 350 pounds, plus another $66 shipping if you were here in the U.S. You know, if you're in the UK or in Europe, that probably equates to about $400 US, and that's a great buy for a very high grade Tebow. Next up, we had an AFA 85 Hoth Rebel Commander. Beautiful example. It was a punched example as well, but very high grade. That one was over in the UK. That sold for 361 pounds, which is about $439 US. Now, I've got an AFA 85 Hoth Rebel Commander, and I paid about $200 for it, and that was about 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. So I'm dating myself with my prices, but it certainly has gone up in value, and this was a beautiful example as well. Next up, this is a tough one to find, surprisingly, and I know who bought this, so congratulations to the Patreon supporter who did buy this, but the Palitoy Trilogo Imperial Commander is a really tough one to find for some reason. You just don't see it pop up very much, and the price reflected that. It had some wear here and there to it. It's probably about a 75 grade overall, but that sold for $435 US on 8 bids on February 14th, but very tough to find this one. It did have a crease running on the middle of the card going through Julian Glover there, but beautiful unpunched, and it did have another crease on the top left of the card. So by no means mint, but because it's so hard to find, you can expect to pay quite a bit of money for it. And I told the person that bought it, I said, you can probably expect to pay between $400 and $450 for this one. And he ended up paying $435 for it. So kind of right in line with what my expectations were before this auction was ending. Next up was a Wicket. This one sold for $121.50. It obviously had a yellowed blister with some heavy denting to it, as well as some pretty heavy creasing on the card, so that kept the price down. It did have the KB Toys Overstock price sticker there, but $121.50 took that home, and I think given the condition issues for this one, I think that was very fair. Next up was the Trilogo B-Wing Pilot. That one sold for $93 mint on card. And again, it did have some condition issues, specifically on the blister. Probably an overall 70 grade, but crystal clear blister, but just had a lot of denting on it. Again, $93 took that home. Next up was the AT-AT driver. That one sold for $401, and it was advertised as in very good condition. And it was. The blister was in pretty good shape overall. $401 for that one was pretty fair. I bought one a couple of years ago on Facebook in the Deal or No Deal group for about $350, and that ended up grading straight 85s with collector archive services. So this one's kind of about the same condition, maybe a little bit, this is probably more like an 80 grade condition, but 401 took that one home. Next up was the Lando in his skiff guard disguise, advertised as near mint, and it looks every bit of near mint to me. The blister has those etched edges to it, but still in great shape with those blisters. Very, very tough to find this without denting to the blister, and it looked to be pretty much near mint. That one sold for $229.40 plus shipping. I thought that price was very fair. This is another tough one to find. This is the Trilogo Admiral Akbar, and that one sold for $327. It was advertised as in near mint condition, and it had a couple of very slight dings, and the very top of the blister had a kind of indentation on it, but probably would grade an overall 80 grade. You can see the indentation on the front of that blister right there. But the back of the card was in great shape, hardly any creases or edge wear. $327, again, took that home. I thought that price was great, just how tough it is to find that Admiral Akbar on the Trilogo. Next up is another one that I really like. This is the Dengar. I've already got one coming that I picked up on Facebook. This one looked to be in about the same condition, if not a little bit better than the one I bought. This one sold for $215. It did have some sticker residue and litho tears in the upper right-hand corner from where the sticker was removed, but probably in a little bit better shape, and that one ended up going for a little bit less than what I paid for mine. So great buy on that one. Finally, we had the R2-D2 in his pop-up saber. Last 17 figure, 85, 80, 85 were the sub-scores for an overall 80 grade from AFA. It did have the new figure, £1, 59 pence price sticker. It was unpunched. What a gorgeous example. And I thought that price was actually really fair. $1,280 on 20 bids plus $15 shipping. That's worth every penny to me. I was expecting closer to $1,500, so I think somebody got a pretty good deal on this one. And that's all I really had for this video. I hope you enjoyed looking at largely Trilogo figures that sold, but pretty wide assortment to start the video. Thank you again for watching, and I'll be back soon.